So, dear attendees, I would like to welcome you to today's lunch panel on behalf of Bayer. I hope you will enjoy the session today, where we actually want to talk about the power of partnerships. To me, the term partnership means we're in this together. And that's why we as a company have partnered all along the way to make some of our commitments turn into a reality. As you may have heard during the conference, as a company, we have committed to helping 100 million women in low and middle income countries gain access to contraceptives, to modern contraceptives by the end of the decade, in line with the UN SDGs. It's a big stretch for us as an organization, and we wouldn't be able to achieve this if we were to walk alone. And that's why I'm particularly glad that we have very renowned members and stakeholders of the family planning ecosystem with us today on stage. And we will talk you through what it means to be in partnerships and what some of the principles are that we also as a company apply when it comes to working together with other institutions and individuals. So to us, it's important to have a systemic approach to the issues we want to tackle, which means we want to have a measurable output, and data shall drive our actions and decision-making. Secondly, we've always been looking for scalable approaches with clearly defined outcomes so that we have a preference for helping to establish fundamental and strong platforms. Thirdly, ideally we would go for sustainable approaches, which means that we want to strengthen the systems in a way that they become donor independent. And last but not least, also as a company being active in this field, we want to promote freedom of choice, which means there shall be no donor dependency, no provider dependency, no supplier dependency. The approach should be demand-driven. So, and these are some of the principles we have applied along the way. We won't be able to reach the 100 million challenge that we have set ourselves without strong partners who have overlapping interests and who bring excellent expertise and capabilities into these partnerships. And with this, I'm glad to have you all here on stage, and I'm very pleased that Shaikat, Youth Trailblazer and 120 under 40 winner, and the Executive Director of CERAC Bangladesh, has agreed to moderate today's panel with really excellent experts in the field. He will introduce them to you, and I hope we have a very fruitful panel discussion and perhaps even some time to ask questions that you may have. So enjoy the session, enjoy your meal over lunch here, and I am pleased to hand it over to you, Shaikat. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. And this is really a great opportunity to host this lunch symposium by Bayer. And I'm so happy to have all of the distinguished panelists with us today. And especially, I'm also recalling the words that Klaus just mentioned, that this particular symposium has a specific objective to showcase the value of partnership, the power of partnership, which is also the title of this panel today. And as we are a little behind the time, I hope like we're going to the panelists, and they will be introducing themselves and also their partnership model they're applying and how they're working with that, and what are the powers they're actually delivering to the family planning and reproductive health community across the world. I now invite Nomi Fuchs Montgomery from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to introduce herself and also present the partnership model they are actually working on. Thank you, Nomi. Over to you.
Hello? Yes, wonderful. Okay. Hi, thank you, Jacob. It's great to be here. I'm Nomi Fuchs Montgomery. I'm a deputy director at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on the family planning team. And it's a pleasure to be here to speak about partnerships. We had agreed in this session to kind of talk a little bit about our work, but I actually wanted to start by lifting up and really framing the discussion around what do we mean by partnerships? And I've been thinking about this throughout the time at the conference, and so much of it is about, from my perspective, letting go of ego. And we think about so often what an organization or even an individual can do, and yet partnerships really require us to think about our collective assets and how we can advance together, really holding on to the values of collaboration and letting go of what our individual aims may be. And I want to congratulate Bayer. I think it's really a phenomenal example to have a very big and aspirational goal around meeting 100 million women, but without specifically your products. It's about choice. And I think that's why we're all here today around how do we come together with each of our individual organizational capacities to achieve something greater. So just briefly, in terms of the foundation, the family planning team has an end-to-end strategy. We follow a value chain starting with upstream innovation, then testing, so that's developing new contraceptive products that meet women and girls' needs, to testing new innovations, particularly around the private sector, digital, direct to consumer. How can we improve access, particularly around self-care? And then scaling what we know works. We have limited resources. We have a lot of tools at our disposal, proven interventions, and how do we get those to scale in a sustainable way? And so following this value chain, we were really pleased with our partnership with Bayer that is actually an end-to-end approach. And we're very excited about a new announcement just a few weeks ago with a development of working in collaboration with Bayer to develop a new contraceptive product, a non-hormonal contraceptive. So this is very far upstream research and development work to look at a discovery process to identify a new target that would ultimately result, should it be successful, in a new product that would address some of the really challenging side effects that we have with existing hormonal products on the market. So that's really far upstream. And then downstream, we're working together on a very exciting project, and it's actually not a project, it's a platform called the Challenge Initiative Next Gen, and this is by far our largest downstream investment. It's $35 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a very generous $36.3 million from Bayer to come together to support this incredible platform that really looks at building self-reliance among local governments to scale proven high-impact family planning practices, including those for adolescents and youth sexual reproductive health. So scaling what we know works with an eye towards sustainability, supporting sustainable health systems, particularly for the urban poor. And we can get into more of this platform later as we engage in the conversation. This is run by Johns Hopkins Gates Institute with a number of incredible partners, both at the country and regional level. But it is a great example of how different organizations can come together, different donors can come together to support sustainable scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Nomi. These are really great examples of how, when you engage private sector, when you engage communities of practice, and also upstream and downstream practices are also disseminated. These are really something that is impacting. And I feel like when examples like Challenge Initiative, these are really some of the great examples, really, I think, benefiting communities in many countries. And this is really some of the things which we should showcase, and the power of partnership is really something that could deliver like programs like this. Thank you so much for your strong presentation. I now go to Nadine Hageli from German Red Cross. And Nadine, would you like to talk to us about how you are actually looking into the partnership model and what you're doing, and the community is really looking forward to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaikat. Yes, my name is Nadine. I'm the head of corporate partnerships and business development at the national headquarters of the German Red Cross. And it's really a huge pleasure to be here in the midst of this inspiring crowd. A little bit of a newbie, as I have to say. We've never been represented in a family planning conference so far. So thanks for the invite, Bayer, again. And I'm very happy to be talking about how and why Bayer came together. Because this is a first new approach that we started at the German Red Cross. It's a co-creational partnership. It's the first time we ever entered a partnership like this with the private sector. And it's called creational because over the past 2 years, experts from both sides at Bayer and the German Red Cross have worked closely together to develop a new service for our humanitarian emergency response. The family planning module provides counseling for both women and men. This is important. And if they wish, also access to a wide range of contraceptive methods when seeking health services from the German Red Cross in a disaster context. Maybe a few words about our ecosystem. The German Red Cross is part of the world's largest humanitarian movement with over 14 million community-based volunteers and with national Red Cross or Red Crescent societies in 192 countries. Our mission is to save lives and to help people in need, in hardship, in disaster and crisis, always based on the needs of the most vulnerable. And as you can imagine, we had quite some work the past few years. Now, I would like to elaborate a little bit on how and why we came together with Bayer. This didn't happen overnight. We had quite an ongoing exchange, a journey of about 18 months, where we constantly learn from each other to get a better understanding of the other side's organization, structure, and also the ecosystem. And looking back, this proved to be very, very crucial and vital for the partnership approach we have today. Also, when we actually came to learn that it's not about supply, that Bayer actually wanted to step out of their supplier role and were interested in a more content approach. This is where it became really interesting for us. Because naturally, of course, we look to fund the work we do, also from corporate partners, but going a step further, we heard about the many challenges we are facing today. It's not only COVID, it's not only the economic crisis, it's also the increase of the population movement. And back then, in 2019, where we started our conversations, we basically saw the potential in a collaboration with a partner like Bayer, with a focus on more content, because these expertise helped us to further develop our humanitarian response in order to become competitive also, and in order to meet the increasing humanitarian need also. After all, the SPHERE standards were the perfect match. The SPHERE standards are the minimal standards in humanitarian response. They are updated every few years, and since 2018, implementing family planning is part of those minimal standards. Disaster response within the global movement operates with an internationally standardized modular system, and the German Red Cross has a broad expertise in basic healthcare services. So therefore, we have a so-called health emergency response unit, which in its fullest version is a complete field hospital. And according to the need in a crisis, we can actually deploy parts of this big emergency response unit, like, for instance, the new family planning module. And with this new module, of course, we can provide access to family planning up to 50,000 people. As I said, men, women, girls, boys, all people in reproductive age, up to 6 months of an emergency mission. Of course, this has health implications, especially for women, because they are safer. Family planning is also life-saving. And we heard it yesterday from a colleague of yours, Ian, that it's all about being informed before you know how you can actively plan your family. So this is really what we want to achieve, that everyone can actively decide how to plan their family or not. And we have a big vision also, but a little bit more about that later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nadine. And it is really a great opportunity for many of the participants at ICFP, like me, that to learn that a lot of responses that you're providing through Red Cross in Germany and beyond, and in many countries in the world, are really crucial, because I was really attending one of the conferences back in Bangladesh, and it was the Red Crescent and Red Cross people. I mean, the volunteers, they're super. I just concluded my statement to them. You are the real super men and women. You're the super people. You are the persons who actually have the ability to change and support communities and build resilience. And thank you so much for all this, all the work that you're doing. I'm now going to Evelyn Samba, who is the country coordinator of DSW in Kenya. And Evelyn, as we know that DSW is committed to promote health and rights, especially as a reacher for young people and other communities in many countries, and also focusing a great model of partnership between European Union and Africa. So you are representing Kenya, the place I would really love to go always. I've been there many times. I hope that on your statement, it will highlight how your partnership with the country and BEAR is working, and what's your point that you want to highlight here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, my name, as you have stated, is Evelyn Samba. I am the country director for DSW Kenya. And we have been fortunate to have a very robust relationship with BAYA over the years. And so in this conference, we are pleased to present an innovation that was developed jointly with BAYA. We call it Life Yangu. Life Yangu, loosely translated in Kiswahili, means my life. And this is an online platform that provides information and services to young people around contraception and family planning. Now, this platform was developed with the full understanding and acceptance of various challenges that face young people in our country, and I bet across the globe. From what I've heard from the conference here, the challenge seems to be similar. We are very well aware that, for instance, in Kenya, a quarter of the population, women, are already childbearing by the time they're 18. We also know that at least 18% of young people aged 15 to 19 are already mothers by that time, or expecting their first child. And even as that is happening, the other point to note is that youth-friendly service provision remains a challenge for many of our young people, that at least only 10% of the public health facilities would be able to provide youth-friendly services. This then means that majority of young people who depend on public health facilities for their services are actually struggling to access services. The other point we keep in mind as we designed this program was that across the country, we find that in this age cohort of women who are of reproductive age, while 98% would be fully aware of family planning options or contraception options, many of them are not accessing those services. They're not able to get family planning contraception. Again, unmet need remains very, very high, particularly for the younger women and adolescents in that age cohort. So with this background then, when we came together with Bayer, we were looking for a solution that would help us to address that gap. And indeed, we've been able to do that because when we were designing this online platform, we were able to take advantage of the wide coverage of internet in Kenya, because at least 40% of the country has a deep penetration of internet access. There's also a wide coverage of mobile telephony again, around the country. Many Kenyans are able to use digital assets. We also have a very, shall I call it, a very wide and robust use of social media across the country. So these factors made it possible then to come up with a solution that is internet enabled, that would provide the kind of information we are looking to provide at the comfort of one's home or privacy in the palm of their hands. And particularly because of the social media engagement by young people, it is very easy for many of them to do this with their phones or with their gadgets. Now, when we designed this platform, we actually depended on the information that is already approved by the Ministry of Health and by WHO. So all we were doing is adapting that information to really be usable by young people using those online tools, but to then also be robust enough to meet them at the point of need. We were also looking with the designing of this platform to come up with a tool that would then make it possible for a young person to go to one place and get all the correct information they need without necessarily exposing them to having to roam all over the internet trying to get information. Now, the fact that this information is approved by the Ministry of Health then gives us the confidence we need to know that we're providing information that is accurate and age appropriate. So since we began the project, which is a pilot, we launched it in April of this year. Until September, we've reached at least 15 million, going to 16 million young people or people across the country and across the globe with information on reproductive health. But more importantly, the platform has a functional map that provides direction to the nearest health facility to young people, so that when you go online, you're able to see at the click of a button which is the facility nearest to you. And when you click it, it also provides you with direction on how to get there. This is very important for many of our young people because a lot of times the issue of access is a key determinant on whether or not young persons would be able to access the services. So we have that provision with the online platform, and it helps a lot when it comes to directing traffic to the online platform. Now, engaging with the young people using social media campaigns has been able to drive traffic towards that platform, but also more importantly, using calendar days where the whole world is talking about family planning and contraception and all the challenges around sexual reproductive health to drive traffic to that platform. For instance, using the ICFP conference right now, there's a lot of conversations going on that platform, which is key for us. Now, coming together with Bayer, there were different roles that each of us played. For DSW, we really were involved in mobilizing the young people and training them and helping them to have the kind of information, but also generating content that would be applicable. For Bayer, they were providing technical support, which was critical for us, but also investments in the platform and the campaign around it. So you found that we had complementary roles, of course, not leaving behind the governments in Kenya, both national and county, which are providing the services at the facilities, but also helping us in terms of approvals for content. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. This is so powerful. I was just thinking, like, in 6 months, you reached out to more than 15 million young people in country. This is awesome. This is tremendous. I think these are really great examples, and partnerships are powerful metrics of a relationship that delivers for the community that we work for. I'm now going to Ian McFarlane, who is the director of strategic communications, strategic partnerships at UNFPA. And Ian, would you like to talk more about the World Contraceptive Day, Equalizer, and many other things that we're really looking forward to? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Shaikat. Good afternoon, everybody. And thanks also to Bayer for inviting us to be part of this conversation. And it, as we've all said, I think is such an important conversation to be having. One of the concerns that we have as UNFPA is the understanding that right now there are 251 million women who want to avoid becoming pregnant, but who do not have access to modern contraception or safe contraception. That's a huge number. There are 331,000 unintended pregnancies every day. We have an enormous challenge that we need to address, not just because it's in the Sustainable Development Goals, but because it means a much better world for everybody. I'm really proud to work for UNFPA, the UN's Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Agency. Our goals are to end unmet need for family planning, but also to prevent maternal death and to end violence against women and harmful practices. And I mention all three because there is a connection between family planning and other elements of development. And I think that's an important argument for us to keep making. And that connection, I think, is really, really valuable. What I think we offer as UNFPA to bring to partnerships rests on our being a UN agency, therefore an intergovernmental body, custodians of the International Universal Declaration of Human Rights, standards, norms, etc., that can be used to influence change. But also we're able to bring our technical expertise, our presence, and partnerships. So we're very happy that we can offer that, and we're very, very pleased with the way that we're doing so, actually with most of the people on this panel, and many of you out there, in the interests of women and girls. I like very much your comment, Naomi, about leaving behind the ego and focusing on the results we want to achieve. In terms of our model for partnerships, we have kind of 4 elements to that. The first one, because investment is important, is around resources, funding, and leveraging resources in the interests of family planning and the family planning intentions of women and girls. There we do have a connection with Bayer. Bayer generously supports our work in kind and financially. And most recently, we've established what we call the Equalizer Fund, which is a pool whereby investors, not just private sector, but others, can contribute to catalyzing innovations and taking them to scale. So that first element of resources. The second value that we think we have with our partners is through, gosh, is that my stomach or is it the weather? I think it is actually. I think it is the weather, isn't it? Thank you, gosh. So the second important element in our partnership model is reach. Of course, the private sector reaches many customers, has many employers, and many also connected through their suppliers. The power of that whole population is really valuable. And one of the things that we do with Bayer, as well as with other partners, is to promote awareness through those different channels. And we for example, on World Contraception Day, we do some specific activities around that. So I think that's the important second branch, if you like, of our model. The third one would be brain power. We recognize that there is a lot of knowledge and innovation and research and development within the private sector. With Bayer, they're helping us understand supply chains, helping us think through what we might do quicker and better in humanitarian settings. And I think acknowledging that the private sector does offer such an amount of knowledge is really valuable in this connection of partners and partnerships. And then finally, I think that there is something about the connection between the private sector in the whole ecosystem of development and response at country level. And so we hope through our partnerships with the private sector to influence policies, regulations, norms and standards that will make it better and easier for everybody to deliver what we need to do in the interests of women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ian, and you're absolutely on time. Thank you. As we have learned about the 4 models of partnership that are working with Bayer, and it is really great to learn the multi-sectoral involvement and how it is promoting the sustainability of the programs that we all are part of. So I now go to Evelyn. Evelyn, as you were just mentioning that DSW has been working in Kenya and supporting young peoples with information and services. Is there anything else that you want to add to the statement that you mentioned with the digital platform Alive Yango, right? You just mentioned, and just a very briefly additional information that the audience could learn from it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Life Yangu for us is a critical tool that helps us to make sure that access to family planning and reproductive health services as a right is achieved. This right is guaranteed. It is enshrined in many constitutions and in many treaties and in conventions. It is important that it is achieved. Therefore, this partnership with Bayer is critical for us in taking us that much closer to that realization. But we're also recognizing the need for other partners as well. So partnerships with other private sector, but including also all other governments in Kenya, because we have 47 governments at the subnational and then the one national one. So all those are critical to come on board to this partnership. Presently, we are covering 10 counties. It is important that we reach all the counties in Kenya. But also, there is an important player in this space, the providers of internet services. It is important that young people, when they go online, they're able to access the information without too much cost on their end. We found that many of them who would not have easy access to internet because of cost would struggle. So we are in negotiations with the providers to zero rate this so that it improves the service provision that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is another example and another notion of unusual suspects, which is the internet service providers. We sometimes never even think about if they have any role in terms of digital platforms that could really be useful for works that we do. And now I go to Nomi, as we just already underlined that the important collaboration between Bayer and BMGF is. So the shared donor role in the challenge initiative that you just mentioned, or the TCI. So actually, some of the audience, might have heard about TCI already, but maybe not everyone. Could you shortly describe about it?
Yes, happy to. And I think my goal here is to
also how it became successful.
Okay. I know we're competing with the rain here, so thank you all for listening clearly. Quite a storm. I have to say that there is room for everyone with the Challenge Initiative Next Gen. And I think if I'm successful in this panel, it's to convince everyone to become a part of it. It is really not a project, it's a platform. There was an incredible pre-conference event with TCI, and it is really that mindset shift to move from project-based mentality to platform mentality. And it's an incredibly exciting way to think about self-reliance and scale through this demand-driven technical assistance approach. So, as Ian said, we have 251 million women with an unmet need. We are in an urgent space to do something now about what we know works. And I am a huge fan of innovation and upstream research. I am so thrilled about the work that we're doing with Bayer on drug discovery to develop a non-hormonal contraceptive technology. This is a game changer. It is also 15, maybe 20 years out into the future. And we cannot sit here and wait for exciting innovations when we have an array of existing products and services that we know work, like postpartum family planning, scaling family planning through community health workers. And this is what TCI NextGen is doing based on this demand-driven technical assistance approach. So let me just give a sense of the scope here. Since we began funding together in collaboration, TCI is working with 6 different hubs in East Africa, Francophone West Africa, India, Nigeria, Philippines, and a new hub in Pakistan. And I can tell you, Pakistan is just roaring with incredible partnership in taking off together there. The population footprint has increased to over 73 million, working in 180 cities, and has already garnered $5.3 million, a local government commitment, again, to scale what we know works. So we're moving from this idea of a project where you're funding kind of incremental delivery to actually local governments themselves funding the delivery of services. And this really is what drives self-reliance, where TCI then, with this massive footprint that can be expanded as new partners, new donors come on board, to really support the coaching of that so that local government themselves has the best practices to scale. Again, the family planning practices that we know work, including work for adolescents and youth. So just to say, there are 3 things in my mind that make TCI extremely successful. There are many people, too many to name, that have really driven the shaping of this incredible platform. But one of the things to me that makes TCI most successful are the people. And that includes, of course, most importantly, the women and girls who the platform is serving, the local governments who are the drivers of this work, of course, Gates Institute, who is the partnership, and the leads for both the hubs at the country and regional level together, and of course with the donors. It is the passion that people bring to the platform that is driving success. The second aspect is around building the evidence base. So I think there is, again, back to this unmet need, an urgency to scale what we know works, to scale high impact practices. TCI builds on decades of evidence to take those proven high impact practices to scale. And this is, again, focusing on the urban poor, making sure that we're leaving no one behind, and thinking about how to essentially move away from spending a lot of money chasing shiny objects and building on the research that's been done to date by many of the partners sitting in this room to take those proven practices to scale. And the third area for success for TCI NextGen is, again, anchoring towards this goal around sustainability. And TCI has these interlocking tenets that I just want to read off because I find them very inspiring. So you can think about scale, but you could pay for scale to make it happen. What TCI does is link scale, efficiency, sustainability, and impact. And you can't have one without the other. And that is really, if we're thinking about, again, this massive unmet need and addressing what women want now, what women and girls want now, we must think together around how those 4 tenets come together to drive sustainable solutions that are both efficient, because we don't have unlimited resources, that focus on outcomes, really driving towards impact, and have a sustainability lens. And this is truly, I think, an inspiring way to think about ways to expand the footprint and to think about driving impact. Thanks.
Thank you, Nomi. I was just tracking the partnerships with people, partnership with cities, the local government, the private sector, and whatnot. Thank you so much. And I'm going to Nadine with a very brief question, which is GRC and Bear came together in partnership. And actually, what do you aim to achieve from out of this partnership? Would you like to tell the audience that this is your aim of this collaboration?
Thank you, Shaikat. Yeah, so actually the aim, what we wanted to achieve together is to develop this new service, not only for the German Red Cross, of course, but for the whole of the movement, because it's everything that we do we're not a platform yet, or maybe somehow as well. So everything we do, every innovation we're working on, we share within the global network and make it accessible for others to use, so that, nothing is invented twice. And within the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, of course, there's a lot of potential to scale. Firstly, there are altogether 6 national Red Cross societies which also have an emergency response unit. So it's currently being piloted in Colombia with the Colombian Red Cross, who works with migrants at the border to Venezuela. And after last fine-tuning, we will make it accessible in the global knowledge platform of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. This is basically our mother or our umbrella organization. And this is then where it spreads.
Thank you so much. Very briefly and nicely crafted, Nadine. And I'm now going to Ian from UNFPA. And UNFPA as an intergovernmental UN organization's part, it mostly works with the government and civil society and many other, private businesses even. How do you, position the partnership between UN agency like UNFPA and private sector like BEAR? So, briefly, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are, I explained a little bit about the examples that we have around resources, reach, brain power, and sort of alliance building. I think there are a couple of other things that are valuable about the partnership with the private sector that we all share, including with Bayer. But I think, let me mention a few of those, the benefits of that kind of engagement. It's really exciting to hear about new products, right? It really is exciting. And I think, of course, that innovation and development that the private sector is driven by, invests so much in, is really, really important. So I think that that's really, really welcome. Secondly, we're all struggling with this question of accessibility, availability, and affordability. And I think it's been interesting to listen to the other panelists about that. I think the private sector can also contribute in thinking through its pricing. There have been examples where that has been a part of a partnership or a platform to collaboratively figure out how to work in the market and encourage and make it available for products available for people. I think that the last point I would make is building on something that Evelyn said about the way to, the need to access those or provide access to those who are furthest behind. And I think this question about data, evidence, but also data, and seeing how we all share data better, I think is really important for measuring progress, as well as being able to demonstrate success as we head on our journey towards the goals that we all share. Can I just confess to a challenge too? It is important, it's really great, and it takes a bit of time. I mean, we were having a conversation before we came on board that we do all of us come from slightly different cultures, slightly different language that we use, slightly different processes. And I think the thing that we've really celebrated as last night we signed our memorandum or our agreement with Bayer was a process over quite a few months where we had streams of colleagues from our organizations working together to really understand what it is that we bring together, how we work. So when we get to the point of deciding specifically what we're going to do, we're kind of really in tune with each other and have overcome those challenges, if you like. So it is difficult and it's really worth it, and it's very, very valuable when we think about what we need to do together in our platforms for women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I'm now going to Bayer's Head of Sustainability, Frank Strello. And Frank, Bayer has partnered with different organizations in different contexts and settings. Can you tell us more about whether there is a common ground from your perspective?
Yeah, yes, of course. So thank you, Shaikat, for the question, and thanks to the panelists for being so open, speaking about the collaboration and speaking so good about Bayer. That was humbling. And the panel is not about Bayer; it's about the partnerships and the power of partnerships. So there is a common ground, has always been with these organizations which we are partnering with because we have common goals. So being a champion in women's health and in family planning, Bayer has that in his genes to work together with these partners. But what we have experienced in the last, let's say, 2-3 years, when we stepped up our efforts, was a very exciting journey. And it's humbling for me to see that we, as a quite normal private sector company, can really contribute beyond funding, beyond supply, even with the capabilities of our employees. I mean, in all the projects and collaborations you have heard about today, we have our skin in the game. It sometimes is only a small part which we can contribute, like that we support the Red Cross with giving access to what is anyhow available. We don't invent the wheel again, right? But the collaboration and the work of our staff, not only, by the way, in a dedicated access to medicine team, but also across the organization, like people from product supply, people from medical affairs. So what all the functions you have in a pharmaceutical company, we can contribute so much more than just funds and products. And it's so exciting for me to see that it has been working out, and it will result into even better outcome of the common goal to provide women and girls with access to contraception and to make their choices for their life, which is humbling, which is also exciting, also for everybody in our organization. I would encourage everybody who has some capabilities in that field to chime in with us, because there is enough room for collaboration. So I think if even the limited resources and capabilities we have as a company already add a lot of value and can help to leverage the results, what would happen if 2-3 more companies from different sectors, not only pharmaceuticals, would chime in with us to create that momentum on platform approaches? So bilaterals are good, but then sometimes it's necessary to add different capabilities. We learn so much from each other. So it was so far not only a humbling, but also a very much learning experience. And I can say certainly for both sides, because we do have a different perspective, different language, different mindset. So that's so enriching. And I think the situation in the last 2 years, and even the current situation with geopolitical crisis, accelerates the process. We learn and we see, everybody who's not blind would see, we cannot achieve our 2030 goals without partnerships, without joint forces. And that's, we're just at the beginning of that. So I don't know, I forgot your question, Shaikat, but I think it took me away. So.
Thank you so much, Frank. I was really, I had this in mind, like, if any of you could, highlight the geopolitical crisis affecting partnership, collaboration, and many commodity shortage and many other things that we are currently dealing with in the countries. So basically, we are very running out of time, and then I don't want the audience to be left out from the discussion. So we may take one or two questions from the audience if you would like to speak up. Anyone? Over there? Yes. And here. Okay, these two. Okay, thank you. Please introduce yourself with the name and where you're from and your organization. Thank you. And be brief, please.
All right, thank you very much to all the panelists. My name is Victor Egaro. I'm the chief of party for TCI in Nigeria. So Ian, you talked about a number of things, leveraging resources, brain power, reach, and alliance building. Really, what you talked about is consistent with the collective impact model, which suggests that you need a strong backbone support to facilitate this partnership. From your experience, how have you been able to work with some of these backbone organizations? And what would you consider the most critical ingredients for a successful backbone organization that can foster all of the coordination among various partners? Thank you.
Okay, we're taking the second question and we come back to the panel.
Hello.
Okay, so she's speaking from here.
I didn't expect that I had to walk so far away from you, but this is me, Katharina Hinz from Berlin Institute for Population and Development. Thank you so much for this interesting panel. And I would like to pick up something that Ian already raised. We know about the potentials of partnerships, but what do you know about the challenges? And I have come back from a very interesting panel this morning where we discussed what you can learn from failures. Maybe you have something to share. What did not work and where did you struggle in partnerships? Ian just mentioned different cultures and language and processes that we have to align somehow. And Frank also mentioned some of the what you have to give into or can contribute to partnerships, like competencies, and that it is a learning experience. So my question to you would be a simple one. Have you had any failures and what did you learn from it? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have two questions. I think one directs to Ian and others. Anyone wants to respond to that? Please.
Well, I suspect, I don't know whether we're the only ones who failed, but it's a great question. But first, I'm not sure whether I fully understood, so forgive me, the first question from TCI from Nigeria about the successful elements. I mean, I think that being open, learning together, being clear on the purpose, the principles that Klaus outlined at the beginning, I think are really important for framing the conversation. So those would be some of the things that I think we can consider as being very important elements to partnerships. I think it's also really important to be clear on the expectations. We've got very ambitious goals, but we're not going to get there without some sort of step-by-step methodological approach. I haven't been in my job long enough to be able to articulate a number of specific failures, but I think. Thank you for the question, Patricia, because I think it is really important. One observation I have, which I want as a UNFPA to think more about, firstly was that we tended to see the private sector as just giving us money. And I think that's not an approach. That is an element in the partnerships, but if you just go down that road to get money, if it's only about transactions of cash for projects, then it's not really going to be successful. You have to think about leveraging resources and going to scale, and also thinking beyond just the financial dimension. So as I said, benefiting from the knowledge and innovation that may exist in a private sector partnership. I guess the other failing or the learning that we've had is that we do have in the UN kind of strict rules about how we engage and take risk, and that's a constant learning process. We're quite, I would say, kind of conservative in our risk appetite. But through engaging with different partners, I think we're learning more about how you can ensure due diligence for the relationships that you have, how you can make sure reputation is not at risk, but how you can also find ways of navigating what could be really important breakthroughs by taking a step perhaps outside of what you would normally do. I'll leave it at that, and I'm sure there are many other suggestions from colleagues, yeah.
Yeah, I would actually have some addition to also the second question. It's not so much a failure, but during the 2 years of closely working together, we came up with the partnership slogan, learning to dance together. Because also, yeah, due to different, it's like coming from different two planets, and there's often misunderstandings in the beginning. And it's like, yeah, two partners that are learning to dance with each other, and then now and then they really step on each other's foot and it hurts. But then it's about the persistence and the openness to address it immediately, and to take it as a learning, because this is also what creates trust, and yeah, just the familiarity in the partnership to go on and to understand each other better as part of the learning process you mentioned, Ian.
I know we're close on time, but I can just very quickly, and thank you for the question about failures. I think too often we don't talk about that. So thank you for staying here. And I think it's actually a great way for us to end. So just briefly, and this is, kind of in the weeds, but I think it is important when we think about partnerships that in the beginning, we actually, for TCI, we actually had two of everything, 2 budgets, 2 reports, and it was I don't want to speak for the Gates Institute, but I can imagine it's an incredible burden. And when you think about the kind of capabilities of organizations, you think of all of that dual effort in terms of joint funding, what that's taking away from actually delivering on results. So I think one of the failures that we initially had was trying to keep things, again, it actually goes back to ego. Like each of our institutions needed certain things, and we had this dual track. And so we learned from that and have built, I think, being aligned to the same vision, but also a commitment to reducing the burden for the grantee is helping to smooth the operating procedures, and then also being aligned on the metrics. And this really, I think, Frank, goes back to your point. It's not just about funds and products. It's really about that aggregation and being able to be reflective of what's not working. And again, of course, keeping the broader vision in mind of what we're all driving towards.
Thank you, Nomi. I'll get this back to the stage, and this is the last question to all the panelists. It's a 30 seconds question answer. You cannot take more than 30 seconds, which is how these collaborations inspire you and your organization for future partnerships. Just a 30 second. Each of you. We can start with Evelyn.
Thank you. Yes, we are very decided that the partnership way is the way to go. We can't do it alone. We don't have what it takes to address all the multifaceted problems of young people. So we need everyone on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. Nadine.
Yes?
Yes. Thank you. So my take would be that if we can tell nowadays pretty fast if someone really brings the openness and the curiosity and the persistence to really wanting to understand each other, because that's really a precondition if you want to do something content oriented together.
Thank you so much. Frank, do you have a last word?
Not for the last word, yes, but mirroring what Nadine said on this 30-second challenge, yes, we learned a lot from our partners, and we learned what are the prerequisites for a good partnership. So the more good partnerships you have, the more good examples you have, and so we can have a kind of a checklist, and strategic fit is important, and having some elements like the willingness to remove the ego and go beyond that. And so I'm very happy that this is just the start, and just inviting again everybody to join and chime in with these partnerships. They are open, actually, and yeah, open for more contributions.
Ian.
Yeah, I think what's inspiring, apart from the connection and solidarity that you feel when you work with different organizations, is the inspiration of honestly, seeing lives saved. And the inspiration that comes from hearing the voices of young people who are in a community who can now access information, can avoid violence. So I think the fact that you have a learning process and you see change, I think is really, really inspiring. And I think we're going to have to do a lot more of that. It's going to be tough going ahead. Together we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Domi?
Thank you. So running close on time, I just actually am inspired by something that Kojo said. I don't know if Kojo's in the room. Hi, Kojo. So you are incredibly inspiring. And one of the pieces of inspiration that I took away yesterday is you said the agenda is bigger than the organization that we work in. And I am inspired by your leadership. I am so inspired by TCI, everyone that's working there, and about the partnership. I think, Ian, as you said, we are all here for a more gender equitable world, and that each individual as a human being is contributing to this. There is incredible need out there, and we're all privileged to play a role in that. So
thank you so much to all the panelists and the respected audience for demonstrating the value of this partnership from both sides. And also this is how we plan to achieve different goals like FP2030, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and also Bayer's Family Planning Sustainability Goals. So all together, we all commit that we will deliver for a better future for the family planning programs to be reaching each and every person across the world in every corner. Thank you so much for attending the panel, and thanks to all the panelists. Thank you for being here.